Are there any motions to take note of answers? Senator Wong.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I move that the Senate take note of answers given by Senator Johnston to questions asked by Senators Wong, Conroy and Carr today. Well, Mr Deputy President, we learned two things in question time today. We learned two things. Firstly, no one in this government appears capable of keeping a promise. No one in this government appears capable of keeping a promise. And the second thing we learned is that the South Australian Liberals are the doormats in the Liberal Party room. The doormats in the Liberal Party room. We know, of course, that the National Party have long been the doormats in the Coalition Party room. But let's be really clear. There is no advocate on that side of the chamber, there is no advocate on the front bench who is prepared to stand up for South Australian jobs. We've seen that when it comes to Holden's, and we saw that again today. Minister Johnston today had a number of occasions where he could have backed in the promise he made to South Australia prior to the election on behalf of the coalition government policy. And I invite Senator Birmingham, who's in the chamber and I hope will speak, I invite him to reassert the promise that was made in Adelaide before the election. I invite him to say the words, "We will honour our pre-election commitment." He's got his head down, and I guarantee, senators, he will not recommit the coalition to an election promise that they want to break. Because it was an election promise that they made for politics only. And the sadness is this. We know how important the shipbuilding industry is to South Australia. We know how important this industry is to Australia. We know how important it is for Australia's manufacturing economy, manufacturing and technology sector. We know how important it is for jobs, for advanced technical engineering skills and cutting-edge manufacturing technologies. And all of the coalition appears to have taken the Joe Hockey line on everything. It's always someone else's fault. It's always someone else's fault. And we hear excuse after excuse after excuse from the coalition about this issue. And frankly, the excuses just don't stack up. But rather than go into that, I think it comes back to one simple issue, and it is this. Before the election, this government, the Shadow Defence Minister, went down to Adelaide and he said the coalition is committed to building 12 new submarines here in Adelaide. And what have we heard since? What have we heard since in this question time and in other question times? We see ducking and weaving, preparation for the breaking of yet another promise from a government that seems incapable of keeping any pre-election promise, a government that seems incapable of keeping any pre-election promise. And I would say this also. This comes on top of the way this government walked away from the auto industry across the country, which is going to have such devastating effects for the economy of South Australia. Oh, Senator Abbott scoffs. Well, unlike him, we on this side of the chamber, and I suspect across this chamber, apart from those opposite, but in this chamber, do not believe that seeing thousands of workers lose their job is something simply to be laughed off. We saw the Treasurer on the floor of the House of Representatives goading Holdens to leave. And where were the South Australian Liberals? All very quiet. I mean, you'd have to say, I will say this, you'd have to say in the past there have been some staunch advocates for South Australia on both sides of the parliament in past governments. We saw that under the coalition. We saw Senator Minchin, Vanstone, Downer, Robert Hill, all staunch advocates for South Australia. Under our government, we had advocates for South Australia, ministers at the table who were prepared to stand up for South Australia. Where is Christopher Pyne? Where is Mr Pyne? Where is Mr Briggs? Where are all these staunch advocates for South Australia? Well, they are sitting quietly, simply allowing this coalition to destroy jobs in Adelaide and to break election promises which go directly to South Australian jobs. Senator Birmingham, if you get up to speak, recommit to the promise. Recommit to the promise and show the people who sent you here you're not going to break another promise.
Your time has expired.